see, I've wanted to have you on the show for some time, and I knew that I always knew that your name was on the kind of the list of guests that we wanted to bring, and because I always found it very interesting how I've known you for so long, years, decades, really.
Yeah, it is decades.
And then you made a very swift transition into this content creation, educational kind of vibe. It may not feel educational all the time, but for me it is, because I'm learning about the country all the time, every time I see one of your videos. What was the catalyst to kind of push you to that side? I know you've always kind of been an outdoor guy with the surfing.
That's true. So, well, I think it kind of all started as, for most of my life after school, when I graduated from Maple Leaf, I worked jobs from the time I was 18 until I was like 34 that basically I hated. But, I'm going to say as a man, but as a person, I guess, you need to go out at some point and earn, and that's what you do. You have to find a way to make money and live life. So I figured I'd find my joy outside of work, and working is just like kind of part of it, Only very late on, as you mentioned earlier too, I am a outdoorsy person. I grew up surfing. It was normal for me and my friends to go to like 3 pools and in the forest sunning. And I actually very naively thought that was the Trini experience, not surfing, but outdoors. I figured Trini people, they go to the beach, you go to a river, you go to a waterfall, which many Trinis do, but come to find out during COVID, which is kind of when I first started making a little video, is that most Trinis don't do very much. And they also, when they do things, it's Maracas or maybe Cora River for a lime or whatever. Like they had no concept of waterfalls or the amount of waterfalls or beaches or things you could do in this country. It's kind of insane. But more importantly, how I got to that point, when I was around 33 years old, I love travel. And I always like to take little pictures of my phones and stuff, right? But that's very basic. And my uncle had a secondhand Nikon camera. And I was like, I really like these phone pictures and stuff, whatever. And I was posting little pictures on Instagram. And then this is, by the way, my private Instagram at this point in time. It's still my private Instagram, but it was called Alan Charles, which is my real name. And it had like 239 followers from friends from school and thing. And when I met my now wife, we were 2 weeks into dating, and I was sitting in her home and I was bored. And I was like, I'm going to change my name to something else on Instagram. And I changed it to Trini Surfer for no reason whatsoever, just because I was like, okay, I feel fit to be different today. And then all my friends were like, who the hell is Trini Surfer? And like, who am I following? Why? And then, of course, it seemed weird. And I just used it to post my little bit of photography and that kind of stuff. And again, I got the camera from my uncle. He sold it to me at a very super cheap price. And then I realized I was obsessed with photography. So I got the camera, and I kid you not, this might sound like an exaggeration, but for probably about a year or two, at least every other day, I would leave my house, sometimes getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning to go and find sunsets. Very basic things because I was unskilled, but like I was excited by beautiful things. Sunsets and sunrises, almost every other, like obsessed with going out and come home and immediately start to edit, sit down. And I was still working in a sushi restaurant at that point in time. So there was no Trini Surfer or no like this, whatever it is now, So I was working, I would go, take pictures, edit, and I hone my skill, and I'd post those pictures on Instagram. And over time, people are like, oh, your pictures are nice, and I get a little more followers. And pretty much from there, it just kind of spiraled out of control. Like over time, I guess we could dive into that more as we go along.
Well, yeah, because social media is such an interesting thing, because a page, a person, a company, a concept, whatever the case is, a product, whatever, can, I guess, go viral, and you can gain followers pretty quickly. What was that like? I mean, I don't have a set of followers. I have a couple thousand followers. Same thing from my travels and school and meeting people over the years. It's more of a personal thing. Whereas guys like you, people like you that have pages, whether it's comedy, whether it's environmental stuff, outdoor stuff, education, whatever the case is, your majority of your followers, or a vast majority of followers, is people that you don't know. And so now what I've always kind of heard, and these things that you hear, is that people feel responsible to post content, to entertain, engage, whatever the case may be. But what was it like transitioning from that 239 followers of friends and family to what is now is probably thousands of followers of, like I said, people that you may not never meet.
For sure. I doubt I would meet 5% of my followers at this point in time. But what you said, I would actually like to start off by saying, because this is important, I do like to separate myself from other influencers and content creators down here. Why I say that is I never wanted this. As in, I never woke up one day as like, you know what would be cool if I was a recognized content creator or an influencer. I didn't even know that existed until well into like things just started happening. I didn't want to be popular. I didn't think about it. It was all born out of passion initially. I was just doing it. And the side effect was this life evolving out of it now. So it's important to say that there's a lot of people, I would say the majority, no problem, but they actively want to become an influencer. It's like a dream or a cool idea. And I find that often brings with it like egos and stuff when you desire popularity and that kind of thing. I think it's a big difference when you fall into it by accident and you kind of manage your humbleness and it's like, you know, I didn't necessarily want this, but it's here and it's giving me a pretty cool life. So why not? So back to give me the initial question is that you asked.
Yeah, how did it feel? How did it feel going from 239 followers to all of a sudden waking up with probably some days were hundreds of new followers overnight?
Yeah, it is crazy. It did happen gradually enough. So let's just use Instagram as an example because that was one of the main things. It started off as a personal account with your friends, and over 5 years, it's now at I don't know 160,000.
Oh wow!
Some kind of madness I had, right? But at one point in the early stages, the first thing was 1,000. And then the next big deal was 10,000. You know, that seemed like a big deal. And
the
I
10K.
remember,
You get
the
K.
10K. And I still wasn't trying. I was just like, well, it was clear to see. I was like, okay, and people like, oh, it was mostly photography too, right? That's before there's videos and TikTok and everything. That was based on like pictures.
Food was food.
Not even that.
Right, not
there was
yet.
nothing. It was pictures of Trinidad and Tobago. There was no food. There was no talking and reels and whatever. That was all sunsets and mountains and beaches. One, maybe a little video here and there of like a waterfall, nothing like it is now. And I remember there's a girl who was talking to me at a point in time, and she's like, hey, you have 10,000 followers, boy, you might start getting free stuff. And I was like, what? People get free stuff? What does that even mean, you know? And well, now I understand much. Like, I didn't know what an influencer was. I never heard of that term or anything at that point in time. But it was crazy. But followers and stuff on social media is all well and good, and you see it, and you get so much messages and so much. But where it really starts to hit you is when you start to leave your house and like you get embraced in the grocery, on the street, in botanical gardens, anywhere in the country, or you put a friend in a video and they're working in the oil field out in South or wherever, and the people working with them is like, hey, I see you hiking, and then it starts to drive home that how visible everybody becomes, crazy visible, you know. So that never gets old. Lucky for me, I think. I mean, you'll get haters no matter what kind of person you are. But my content is mostly non-controversial, non-political, non-religious, whatever that. So 99% of the people who approach myself, my wife, and stuff in the road and all kind of craziness, but they're complimentary, they're pleasant, if not a little excited at times. But nobody's attacking you. And, you know, I don't give them much reason to. I'm not saying things that could rile up a person, per se.
Like some of these other internet personalities.
Yeah, well, some people's thing is bacchanal and whatever, and you could...
Even some of our politicians. So,
yes, exactly, politicians.
So the radio personalities, the other social media personalities, I mean, yeah. I'm not surprised when it does weave itself into that controversy, weaves itself into that.
You can't help it. If you start to bring up things that make people emotional, you're just... that much more at risk of, I mean, we've seen people lose their life, I think, from social media down here, which is insane. Nobody should be doing that. But the situation that did happen, it was like people who were like heavily insulting towards other people. And well, you know how this country goes sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, well, kind of the world, unfortunately, the way that we're going. But I guess food has become a big part of what you do. How did the influencing start? Because I guess that's you know, that kind of comes along with the free stuff. So I'm assuming that transitioned into companies now reaching out. Maybe you or some sort of management team will now reach out to a couple of brands and say, hey, we have an idea to do this collab. How does that transition? It's like turning on the business now?
All right. So that's a good question. And it's a two-pronged answer. Funny thing to say right off the bat, I think, too, because I always laugh in my mind when people say things like that, is that I'm me, I'm the only person in my company. There's no
management team.
No management, no editors, no song people, no nothing. I film, I edit, I talk, I think it out, or whatever. I would love to have a few more people, but I'm not lucrative enough to be justified to have somebody to do anything I do. And then, sometimes you get a little particular with how you want things done. But anyway, in a very quick nutshell, photography, everything picked up. Simultaneously, everything happened. I got better and better at photography and then started to introduce a bit of video. Followers climbed. And as that went along, two things happened. Because of more popularity on social media, I've never reached out to a brand in my life or a company. People reach out to me and they like that their content is organic and different things. And they say, can you help me show off my eyewear or a restaurant or whatever the case is? And on the side of running parallel to this developing, my photography started to become a thing as well. I think too, like instead of for fun, people started to ask for family pictures and different things. In fact, I could tell you right now, the first photo shoot I ever did, and I'm a very introverted person. It may seem not that way, but I'm what they say introverted extrovert. A girl she was graduating from the bar, a lawyer, and she just followed me, and all I would do is take pictures of outdoors and sunsets, and she's like, "Hey, can you take my graduation pictures?" And I was like, "Oh God, no, I don't take pictures of people, and I don't know how to do that." And funny story that everything I said I would never do is like my main thing now. But she's like, "Oh, what? Please." I was like, "Listen, I will come. You could give me whatever you want, and I will try my best." And I went, looking back, the pictures are far inferior to maybe things now, but she was happy. I took the thing, and then so I was like, okay, you know what? I'll start doing only family photo shoots with only 4 people, never more than that. I was like, I'm not touching weddings. I can't handle the social anxiety of being around all those people. But now it's almost all weddings.
Wow.
And still families, I think, too, but very good never say never situation.
Right.
Because pretty much once I say never, it seems like it'll be my main thing within a year. So I don't even bother to say never anymore because it seems stupid. The social media side of it, as you said too, it grew and grew. And I would go and whoever reached out, now I had my standards from early. Like you can't bring me a pack of cigarettes and be like, hey, here's real money. Right. It had to kind of align or at least make sense. And I tried to keep it organic and real. I will not advertise anything that I think is a scam or inferior product or even food. You've seen plenty of food influencers these days and they're always under fire for people being like they're liars, they take money, they say anything tastes good. That is not at least the way I see it. If you have a food place and I come and review it, and yes, even if it's a paid collaboration, I vet your place in advance, I see how you're looking just from Instagram and I worked 15 years in the food and hospitality industry, so I know the side of the restaurant. I'm not here to shit on businesses and that kind of thing. Sorry, are you allowed to cuss in
yes.
the pod? Okay. Right. So when I go, if for some reason there's a problem, bad service, bad food, you feel sick or whatever, quietly, take back your money. I just can't post the video and I'll give you my feedback. Because also too, influencers have the power to really harm somebody's business. I could put it out there and be like, I got sick from this man place and they was nasty.
And they'll close down the next day.
It's problematic, and some people feed on that, or there's this thought process out there that honesty is mixed with negativity. Like if you can't put out bad reviews, you're not being fair and honest now. But you can withhold a bad experience and not take your money and not post it. Now, you can say you're not informing the public, but I see it as giving the people time, unless they're like really insanely bad people or some kind of situation. But if it is that something was just not right on the day, I'm not advertising it, so I haven't encouraged anybody to attend. And the people can then take that information, like, hey, the burger was a little undercooked, boy, or your wings or whatever. Maybe it'll improve,
Yeah.
People find that impossible to believe that you could ever turn down any money to just be like honest enough about it, or like they don't believe that's possible because it's a reflection of them. If they're in my position, they're taking our money and they're lying for sure. So therefore, I must be also lying.
Them or the culture that we have that we
because people do that, right?
Yes.
For sure.
Yeah, but not just. But I guess my overall point was not just influencers.
Yes.
That we've seen it from some of the highest seats of political office.
Yeah.
Where, integrity is it's
Low.
not really a thing. Well, you see, it's interesting that you say low because I see integrity. I've been saying this better part of my adult life. Don't see integrity as a scale. I see integrity as an on and off switch.
Yeah.
It's either you have it or you don't.
Yeah.
And once you lose it, you're probably not getting it back, kind of thing, in my books at least.
Outside of like a large life change. or
Yes,
something
exactly.
like
Of course. There's always redemption or the possibility for redemption. But that sort of thing, it's, so that's why I say the culture that we've been kind of brought up in and has manifested. And I don't think it's unique to Trinidad.
No.
I think that's kind of all over the world at this
Yeah.
point, is what it feels like, unfortunately. How is it being so public? Yourself is one thing, but you're very public because your family is in your videos. How is that? Because I a lot of times I've heard a few people, not even influencers, nobody in the industry, they don't want to post their kids online for obvious reasons, this and that. How have you kind of managed that side of it? Like not just public life, but public life for the family as well.
Yeah, that's is a big one. There's no denying it. You have to think about that a lot sometimes, and I understand that you could easily go down that rabbit hole of negatives of having a public family. And we do have plans to remove the children respectively from social media. When I say remove them, like just ease up. Like before they start a certain level of schooling, whatever, not out of like fear of society and that kind of thing, whatever. So they're not associated with being a known person as they go through the school life, and when people start to pick up screens or whatever and be like, well, oh, Lucas or Liam or whatever, yeah, your father, just let them have a normal life,
Right.
If they decide later on they want to pick up daddy's cameras and go hard and do whatever, that's cool. Because I had to phase out at some point, probably soon.
They don't need to be part of the business structure necessarily.
No.
Yeah.
Right now,
I agree with that.
But as I tell my wife, I need to, because we've had these conversations. So I mean, they contribute to the household, right? Because then people like Huggies and diapers and things.
Of course.
And let's be very clear. I'm not a wealthy person. I've done good enough for myself to have a happy life. But there's months where the bills, you're coming close, So let's put that out there one time that my life might look amazing on social media, and I do have an amazing life, but it's not because of financial like wealth and that kind of stuff. Is I just happen to have a great wife and a really cool family and a pretty cool job most of the time.
That's awesome.
But it's still a regular job, and you have to go out and earn and yeah. I can't just sit back and be like, well, I'm just balling, I'm so famous and everything's so great, and this is going to end at some point, or social media could all collapse one day.
True.
So I'm ready. I'm always prepared to let go of that. Instagram, everything disappeared today. I'm not going to curl up and cry. Next stage of life, I don't.
Pictures.
Yeah?
You go deep into pictures.
Deep into pictures, and AI kills out my photography career or whatever, then that's all right. We start again, But I'm not attached to the likes and the dopamine of it to the point where I'm like, I'm worried. It's here, I'm using it now. And my family, to answer your question very simply, Stephen, it's, first of all, my wife, although she thinks about it, we have conversations, but my family is game. They understand that the life we live is heavily part of what's happening right now. And I choose, like in many situations in life, to think of the positives. I'm aware of the negatives of putting yourself or your family or anything out there in this society or how things could be.
Yeah.
But I also, just like outside of my family, when it comes to going on hikes or whatever, like I don't pull up to every waterfall or secluded area in Trinidad with the crippling anxiety that I'm going to be killed or robbed, because I just can't live like that, because then what the hell would I even do? So it's likewise, I consider my family, we think we make smart decisions, but I hope that the vast majority is that we put out positive, be a good family kind of content, and that most people like why we don't want to bring harm to this family or different things or whatever. I understand that there's the other types of people out there, but you just move smart or whatever. I want to live life within reason, and I don't want to be constantly worried about everything around every corner and every situation. There's many other people and families out there in terms of things that are not like direct criminal threats or whatever. A lot of people don't want to post their families because of pedophiles and different things. And
True.
I don't know, this might be a controversial thing to say, Dread, but once you stay the hell away from me and my family, whatever's going on in your brain or what, like
It's kind of, yeah.
you don't need my you can go and Google a million baby pictures right now, and if that's in your sick brain, fix up, like I'm not going to sit down and worry about the possibility that somebody likes my child's face or something. Like I don't, it's gross, it's terrible.
Yeah. But it's that's just kind of
Yeah.
part of living life
it
these
is.
days, because life is becoming ever increasingly digital.
Yes.
Our digital footprint is growing every single year.
Mm-hmm.
Even my grandmother, her digital footprint is growing every single year, and I help her with every step of the way, every app that needs updating. But we are heading in that direction where its privacy is I mean, it's more of a concern, but it's a lot less than it used to be. I
Yeah.
mean, your whole life is out there.
how-
It may be curated most of the time on social media, but
Correct.
our lives are out there digitally now.
No, they're out there, and more so for other people, but you're out there. It's funny you brought up your grandmother. This is off topic, but she has a iPad at home, and of course, grandmothers, they love to look at pictures and memories on Facebook and I remember going there once, and she had her iPad. It hadn't been connected to the internet in 3 days, so she'd been scrolling like previous Facebook feeds that have not updated. And as a granny, you realize he's like, this hasn't changed in a long time. But anyway, I thought that was interesting. She had no clue.
I got just a week ago. My grandmother comes over. We had like a family lunch, and she hands me her phone. I said, what's wrong? And she says, could you put Facebook on my phone?
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, let's go.
Let's go. Let's start.
Granny's
carry
on
the addiction
Facebook.
over.
So yeah, exactly. From iPad to now phone. But yes, I mean, I guess now I kind of want to touch on something that always wanted to ask you.
Okay.
Probably before we even started this podcast, because you've commented on it a few times online.
Okay.
And you mentioned it very briefly here about the hate and the hateful comments.
Yeah.
I don't want to dwell on it too much, but I am curious. I mean, I've watched your content. I'm sure a lot of people have watched your content. I know a lot of people watch your content. You've said it. It's non-political. You don't talk about religion. You don't talk about those things. I mean, is it just people just want to cause trouble? I mean, what's? I've never been in that position, so I don't really know like what that would feel like. But also, what does that feel like to kind of be on the receiving end of kind of, I guess, racial, hateful, whatever the case is, comments?
Yeah, it's a big thing, right? And I can tell you right now, the way I feel about it is not how a lot of other creators or people feel about it. I know a lot of them personally who are really affected or feel aware. Like now, as you said at the start of this podcast, you know me for a long time. We come from a place of dark humor and thick skin. When I say,
Sure.
like I've always been like that, a little bit of a clown and a problem in school or whatever. So, and I'm a big Eminem fan. He's molded my life big time, whatever, which has taught me, basically don't give a fuck about what other people, not that you don't give a fuck, but like, in a world that tries to beat you down, put your middle fingers up and you do you and succeed. And I apply that over to social media as well too, because it's funny, there's a lot of people, and I feel bad, because when these people come at me with hate and racism and stuff, normally, first of all, it could either be funny to me, because they're so stupid in the things they're saying, and so what I like to do is when they come at me, most of the time you ignore and block. That is a key thing for bullying on social media for anybody, not a content creator or influencer. That is always the best answer. So I should put that out there. Block, ignore, try to not get involved with commenting back and forth or whatever kind of thing. However, occasionally I do find entertainment or fun in if you're really coming out your way for me, like for no reason, and it's always no reason. You ask that, I'm going to call it what it is, even if the song's like, I don't know, like it's too much self-praise or whatever. My content is it's very middle ground, straightforward. As I said, there's no religion, there's no politics. I'm not talking about Palestine and Israel. It's waterfalls. If you don't like me, which is fine, nobody's obligated to like me. You can find it's one thing to be like, oh, his song's annoying, or he looks stupid, or that's cool. But it starts to get interesting is that when you really think about it, like outside of that, what reason do you really have? You don't like outdoors in Trinidad? You don't like food? You don't like families? What is it you don't like? So it starts to come down to, well, you just don't like me because I'm either white or something of that nature, or maybe some kind of envy, or maybe my life looks like it's going too well, and maybe your life, not you, but somebody's life, which I get because I've been there. I know what it's like to maybe not be in the best place in life, and even like your friends or people around you, it's hard to be extra supportive because you think your own is not going that well, which is not a good thing. But I'm just being honest. Like, I understand what it's like to. It's very easy to be like game for everybody. I want everybody to win and succeed, or whatever. When you are succeeding, when your life is going well, it's like, well, everybody could come along too. When you're down in the pits, or you're going through a terrible breakup, or you lost your job and you're catching your ass. Sometimes it's a little harder to be super positive about people who look like they're coasting through life, But I kind of think that it's either they don't like me because of my skin color, or whatever they've devised in their mind about my skin color, or there's some level of envy or jealousy about the perceived life I have. Yes, my life is great, however, but I think some people think there's so much more that's not there. They don't know me at all, right? They probably think I'm rich. They probably think everything just goes well. Probably think my wife and I don't argue. My children don't get sick. I don't have bad days or worrisome moments or whatever. He must just be getting it. His life must be good, and fuck him, That's all I could come up with. Because nobody ever talks about, I don't like your voice, or I don't like your face, which is fine. Like, you cannot like people, It's always something to do.
I don't like your editing transitions.
No, I hate that waterfall. I hate that Trinidad is so amazing,
It is.
Nobody's ever commented. There's never been a hater who has not spoken about my skin color or my privilege of some kind, or that I've been given everything. It even gets funnier too, is people like straight up will be like, why don't you go back to where you came from? So I'll screenshot their comment and I'll put it on my story, and I'll let my followers vote if I should return to Russia, Sweden, or I'll name predominantly white countries where obviously I must be from, or whatever the case is, and let people decide where I should relocate.
Yeah, I guess adding there's a lightness to that, like a diffusing characteristic to that sort of reaction
Kill
from
them
you.
with kindness.
Yeah, it's better. And I kind of carry along two mottos, which is that I carry along. It was on my book, the back of my book and whatnot. Diplomacy always, and never stop learning. But we'll go on the form of diplomacy always, because I'm somebody, I always want to be able to talk through or communicate through something.
100%.
Whether it's that talk or that conversation becomes a debate, full on heated debate, so be it. But I believe in dealing with things with words and policy, if you will. And so I prefer that kind of a diffusion tactic.
The world should prefer that, right?
Yeah, well, with the amount of wars going on at the same time, Russia, Ukraine, Israel, Palestine.
Yeah, not even
how many other wars going on in Africa literally at this very moment.
Can't even keep up with like supporting wars because it's too much. You have to like forget some of them,
Yeah, it's like if you're supporting wars, you need a list. I support X, Y, Z, A, B, C. It's like, so you need now to support, and people almost expect you to, I don't know, take certain particular sides according to the political climate.
Which is crazy, because it's funny to me what you just touched on there, because it's all well and good to have a stance or a cause or whatever the case is, but people then because they become so emotional about their cause of choice, then they start to, like, they almost get upset if you don't feel the same way or whatever. But so Israel, Palestine, if like nobody's come at me for this, so I'm just an example. Like, if you're not super affected by that or whatever, but maybe I'm super affected by killing of whales in the ocean, or maybe one in Africa or whatever, but, if it's not your own, even though I might feel differently about something else, it's kind of like they already upset at you, or how could you even think of another option of other than the way I'm thinking,
Right.
And I find a lot of people get very emotional. It's emotional, but you have to be able to have your emotion while accepting that there's somebody who thinks the polar opposite of you. Great example, Israel and Palestine. Like, there's some people who are fully for Israel, and some people are fully for Palestine, and they think the other one is
We've spoken about it a few times
insane,
on this podcast, yeah.
Yeah.
At length, we've spoken with Peter George Jr. at length, and probably a few other guests. But you brought up, I guess, this conversation is now, before we come back to Trinidad and the outdoorsy stuff, there's a couple of things that are studies or quotes or whatever thing I was reading that said, the human brain, our brain is not made to know all of the tragedies that are going on around the world. It's like we are fed tragedies every single day, and it's affecting how our brain develops as a society. And because you said something, it's like, you may be passionate about the killing of whales, and somebody else might be more passionate about the Russia-Ukraine situation or Venezuela, United States, whatever the case may be. It's like people demand, or there's a segment of people that demand that you have an opinion on every single thing that's going on.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, how? And is that even possible? And second of all, I think that's damaging to our brains. I think that is not good. So it was I just thought about that. I just wanted to get it out.
You're absolutely spot on.
I wanted to get it out.
No, you have to get it out. And first of all, it's not possible to be. You can't think of all that. And some of the things that these people are passionate about, and I'm all well and good for caring about people or feeling pain when children are being bombed, and that's terrible. But there's a hard reality in this world sometimes that you might be better off kind of compartmentalizing your situation or living in the moment, which means switching off the other people's pain in some aspect, or even sometimes acknowledging how much can you really do, and does it make sense to actively do whatever it is you're attempting to do, and how does it affect your life? And I don't say this a lot, so maybe, I don't know if this will bring me some heat, but it shouldn't. A big part of why I'm able to be quite happy in life or even go about my business, my family, what I do is I'm very focused on me and my family. I'm aware of the atrocities of the world, even in Trinidad and different things. However, some people get so pissed at me when I talk about like the crime situation in Trinidad is exaggerated. It's not a matter that it doesn't exist or it's not as bad as people say, but it's front page news on everything. It's in your face, the murder, this, that, or whatever. And there's lots more positives going on, but that doesn't get the clicks for the newspapers. And so if each day you're filled with paranoia, or it's almost like you want to be updated on anything that is like criminal related on a daily basis. And then it's like, well, Alan, the amount of murders last year per population and different things. I'm like, okay, but is that the reality of living in this country? Did you not get up and leave your house and go to work today? Did you not get access to the groceries and bathe in your hot water? No, I'm not saying everybody has exactly those things, but most people in this country are not physically starving to death. Like, we have a lot of good going for us here. And yes, there's crime. A big aspect of that crime is the gang violence on itself. And outside of that, yes, average citizens are touched. But the point I'm making is you can probably have a pretty decent life in Trinidad. And a lot of people may not be directly killed or murdered. Like, a lot of people, the vast majority of the population don't fall into that category now. But a lot of people think as if they are that. And they discourage people from visiting. They tell foreigners when they're coming that,
travel advisories and
well,
those sorts of things.
People talk as if, like, I do a lot of tours. And
Right,
it's
that's
always
true.
Trini diaspora or foreigners. And a lot of them contact me a few months out. Hey, Alan, I talked to my auntie in Chaguanas, and she say, don't come to this country. And I was like, well, I understand what she's trying to say, because a lot of people feel very, especially people who have been affected by crime. You can't tell them not to feel anything, right? But there's a lot of people who live a decent life, but the media and stuff makes you think like, this place is a shithole, and we're in real problems. We have problems. Alan is not saying we don't have problems. I really want to eliminate all the crime and pollution in this country. So that is not neglecting it. You could say two things at once. There's a problem to be addressed, but there's a reality to be addressed as well too, that a lot of people and tourists visiting this country could easily visit here and experience the beautiful side of Trinidad with very, very low chances of actually experiencing crime and that kind of stuff, unless you decide to go in certain places or areas or by yourself at night. You could check into the Hyatt, you could go to Maracas, you could go to waterfalls, you could eat food all over the place, you could do things, and there's a very low chance that you're going to encounter crime. And if you do, there's the higher chance of the crime is more than likely like a pickpocket robbery kind of situation, wherever most tourists don't get kidnapped and murdered. Most visitors, unless you disagree with what I'm saying, of course. But
No. I don't necessarily disagree. It's just unfortunate that what happened in Tobago recently with the American guy.
Yeah.
I mean, when I saw that, my first thought was, it was like, damn.
Yeah.
Obviously for him and his family, obviously.
Yes.
But I feel like we are fighting we are already fighting an uphill battle with tourism.
Yes.
Already with the present state of the global economy, with our tourism infrastructure between Trinidad and Tobago isn't, we have in Trinidad, we have all of the nice hotels, but in Tobago, one or two things could probably be elevated in terms of infrastructure.
100%.
I love Tobago. It's my favorite Caribbean island, by the way, just so before anybody says I'm knocking Tobago. But we have so many things that have knocked us back, or so many obstacles that we've been dealing with for decades. And now, yet another tourist has been, killed in Tobago, which is really, really unfortunate.
Yeah.
It literally, for many reasons. And I just like what my second thought was, how do we get people to understand that those things damage us exponentially
As a collective.
as a collective going forward? I mean, that instance, I don't want to keep saying it, the thing, but that instance over and that incident over is going to reverberate. His friends and family never coming here.
Yeah, 100%.
People that read that news story in Colorado and the surrounding where he was from not coming here.
Yeah.
I mean, we are hurting ourselves, and it's
Big
just
time.
I don't rely necessarily. I don't eat or rely on Tobago tourism and Tobago's visitors. So if they see 100 less visitors next year as a direct result of this, I don't know. I'm just making up numbers.
Yeah.
But if they see 100 people less, it's not going to affect me. It's really, I mean, it does affect me, but it's not going to affect me directly. Not on a granular level.
Yes.
I'm still everything is going to go about my life as normal, but people in Tobago will be affected.
100%.
In a very serious and significant way. I don't know. Not that I don't know. Maybe I'm hoping that people will hear what I'm saying and people will be like, oh yeah, maybe we should stop unaliving people.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But
anyway.
that's the sad part about it, right? Is the person who murdered this gentleman is obviously not in the frame of mind of caring about the country or what happens, whatever. He's obviously a psycho.
But then there's another side where there's the kind of a socioeconomic connection where so much is, it's so difficult to do things in this country. For a lot, I speak to a lot of young people from all walks of life, and I hear it's hard to get jobs. It's when they come from a certain place, it's hard to get, or certain, they're perceived to be of a certain, from a certain place. And I think that there's also a lack of opportunity. I think that going back decades, I think the governments of Trinidad and Tobago have done a horrible job, despite the probably dozens of social programs. There's corruption. The reasons that those social programs exist is for corruption anyway, not to really help anybody. I will say that loud. And at least majority of them are. And it's just unfortunate because a lot of these kids, young adults, feel like there's no other option because, I'm never going to get anywhere, so I might as well do what I need to do. And a lot of times
100%.
that entails whether it's joining a gang or getting involved in some sort of criminal lifestyle. I see it as massively unfortunate, again, on both sides, because he's that young. I believe it's a young man that they held in questioning to question about it. A young 24-year-old man, young man. I mean, I don't want to speculate because I really have no clue who he is or anything. But at the end of the day, it's like, did he think that he had that this was his only option was to I don't know if it was to rob a tourist. Who knows? The tourist might have tried to do something. I'm not casting aspersions, but you never really know what went on.
None of us were there.
But yeah, so it's just unfortunate. I see it as a very unfortunate thing. A young man's life threw away his life that he probably thought wasn't worth anything. Again, don't want to speculate, but that's kind of the vibe that I'm getting, and that's to me is very unfortunate. Just looking around the state of the country and how people are feeling. You can feel it. You can feel how people are feeling. whether it's the Trump Venezuela thing, whether it's of course our classic PNM UNC conversation. But yeah, not that I want to get political on this episode, but yeah,
not politics. I
Yeah.
mean, you spoke of
The
the
elements
elements
of
of politics, but it is a reality. Is as you said, it's a kind of death cycle because
feels that way.
lack of opportunity, lack of situations, create more situations where people understandably will want to look out for themselves. And if you feel like there's only a certain way to look out for yourself, and then perhaps that cycle over time in different communities stems down to the younger ones. So the people from 10 years ago who figured they had to do certain things to look out for themselves, maybe criminal activities and stuff. And then the younger ones coming up, seeing them looking out for themselves and realizing, well, I catching my ass too, or like, oh, society doesn't like me, or I don't feel of worth. So it just grows exponentially.
Or I have to help the household. I have to help my grandmother. I have to help my mother.
Exactly.
That's, I mean,
And
a lot of it. I think that what we're saying is the same. Is that there is a lot of times young people are pushed into that.
Yeah,
that way of life.
You weren't just spawned as a monster on Earth and you decided like screw everybody. I'm gonna just go on a killing rampage and
Which is unfortunate.
sorry. Some of it is born like I mean you and I know. I mean, or in my case, I guess with the kids or whatever, like you're gonna do anything for them. In my case, obviously, any type of crime or anything like that, or whatever, would be the absolute last resort. But I'm just in a fortunate position where I have not had to face that reality yet, or whatever. But if it came down to my children literally starving or hurt or harm coming upon them or whatever, then the rest of the world is not my priority anymore, you know? And that's that. I could feel that. I could relate to that completely.
Yeah.
I do hope, I do hope that if I ever fell on great desperation, or I would like to think that I would reach the non-violent ways first, or begging or something, or whatever the case is. But then there's the other side of it. Like, I guess that's no kind of way to live either, right? So it might be easier just to take an iPhone or take $20,000. Maybe you don't even want to be a killer or whatever the case is. Maybe you do something that is not necessarily as bad as murder or whatever, like you're stealing, and you get faced with a situation where you have to make a decision because your life maybe.
I'm sure that's quite a bit of the young men and women getting involved in these things. I'm sure it's a lot of that. It's just
there's people not willing, not in many situations not willing to let you walk away with their stuff or to whatever the case is, and then
because I think back to when I was 18, 19, 20, 21, to that age.
Yeah.
I thought I had it figured out. I mean, you hear people say it. I've been hearing people say that for decades on, videos. Oh, I thought I had it all figured out at 21. And now that I'm older and I look back at 21, I thought I had it all figured out. I was a kid. I knew nothing.
Let's call it what it is, Red. Like, how stupid are we? Not literally stupid, but like when I think of my teen years and whatever,
Well, a lot of wasted time in my case.
Yeah, well, it's simple. Like there's a little bit a lot. Like, don't get me wrong, you can make certain decisions or whatever, but even the basic rules of life. I'm not saying I agree with all kind of laws and decisions and policies in countries, but wait until 18 to do certain things or to be able to have a little more autonomy over yourself. There's a little bit of good logic behind that, however, because you're really not thinking too straight in your teens and with all those emotions, even in your 20s, Dread.
Yeah.
Like,
the hormones didn't settle yet.
Great, like all this stuff that I guess was more prominent in maybe places like Canada and stuff, like children allowing to make decisions, have sex changes or whatever. No problem even if you're suffering or you really feel like a woman or whatever the case is, hold up, because there's a lot you could feel differently about anything. That's an extreme example, but that's like a life-altering example that maybe you should wait, like just hold off. Dress like a woman, or I'm just using this extreme example because to go and like physically have surgery on yourself in some capacity that's not like life-saving could really, switch you up. And there's a big chance that you might feel very different about who you are when you hit your 20s, and you might feel you will. I mean, I'm turning 40 on Friday.
Wow.
Yeah, right? Wow,
that's right.
Indeed.
You and Adam's birthday was
Adam,
close.
Your brother, of course.
Yes.
Adam was in my class. And point being is it's unfortunately crazy because we are literally talking about what 20 years ago we would have heard some adults talking about. It's almost like a mandatory thing to say when you hit your 30s, your 40s. You have to be like, boy, if I only knew what I did back then, or boy, if you think you're grown up then, but telling that to 20, you're like, okay, what the hell does that even mean? Correct. And then they'll be 40 when they're like, oh shit.
That's what he meant.
What is happening? His life switches up hard. Some people still stay more the same. Some people change big time. But there's no twisting it that 30s, 40, life, whatever, like you just, age humbles you, life humbles you.
Oh yeah.
And you see things differently. And I even think about my children coming up or whatever, because I know I was a wild little madman, maybe more so than a lot of people in my teens and my 20s or whatever. And
we'll save those stories for next time you're on the podcast.
yeah, but I'm just saying, like I now thinking to myself, well, what are my two sons going to be if they inherit any of my blood? And how am I going to navigate that? I kind of think my parents deserve a little bit of praise, because I did some stupid shit and just general behavior. Anybody, I'm sure a lot of people, And how do you to sit back and take that as a parent and just, well, your son will come home from that club at some point. Like, I can only imagine the pain and anxiety we caused.
Oh, yeah.
The way I feel now about my children, and you have to internalize it because you can't not let people live and experience. But God, I can imagine the worry or if they'll come home, the sleepless nights. I don't know, boy.
That's comical. We went. I'm really glad that we had that discussion, but I have to bring it back to the nature because I also had these questions that I wanted to ask you. So I'm taking a left turn here. What? I mean, have you been everywhere in Trinidad?
No, that's the funny thing. I really have not. I really have not.
I mean, but you've been to a lot of places. I mean, do you all go? Is it like a weekly thing? Do you all go and like choose a place? Have you all started throwing a dart at a map yet?
No. I should though. That would be a good video.
That'd be a cool idea.
Yeah, except it lands on a place I physically cannot get to. But no, it's funny because it was a weekly or more rampant that the YouTube side of it really kicked off in COVID, which worked well for me because everybody was thirsty for outside and I provided the outside and breaking probably multiple laws at that point in time with things I was doing. But as time went on, now I create every day, especially with the new forms of social media. Not that Instagram is so new, but with Reels and TikTok, short form videos, and it's spawned into restaurants and family content and eating mangoes, that kind of stuff you could spit out in your home or with a drive to the mall or, it's still plenty work. YouTube is a different beast. It requires effort, longer content, more thought, literally driving to some very distant places, hiking it, filming it, bringing it back home. So to answer your question, it was much more like once a week back in the day. Now, if I could find myself filming something new, in particular in the bush, once a month, that would be good. Because I've expanded my YouTube as well. I do like cultural things or farmers. I try to highlight people and everything Trinidad. That's what I'm about now. Anything that's worth highlighting in this country,
right?
Be it a good person, a good situation, and then yes, the outdoors, I'll do it. But people do think that they're like, hey, what adventure are you going on today? I was like, bro, I stay with my children for the next 3 weeks or so, like, and working and editing. Because it does appear as if I'm always in the jungle and thing now, But that's not the case anymore. But your question about going everywhere, I've obviously been more places than the average Trinidad and Tobago person by far. There's people who are not on YouTube and stuff, or they're passionate about outdoors, and they've seen probably more than me, like hikers and stuff. But what is interesting, so my goal is to document as much as possible, outdoors-wise, everything else but outdoors. And I've reached a point where there's maybe a handful of places that I can navigate or explore myself, and then I start to enter the realm of needing boat rides or experience people that you're starting to go 2 to 3 hours into the forest, and if you don't know what you're doing, you can't pretend that you're just going to find it, Right. So I have to reach for people's knowledge, but that's what the YouTube channel is for. It's an archive now at this point, and it started like that. But I want to leave it, assuming YouTube doesn't go wrong or whatever. The hope is that maybe by
Google take over the world. Don't worry, they'll be around.
Exactly. So fingers crossed on my memories and videos. But the goal is now, Stephen, to leave. I could probably give up things maybe when I'm 50. Let's say another decade, if even that. And hopefully YouTube in particular is here's Trinidad and Tobago, what you can do. You're visiting, maybe we're doing better tourism, maybe new children are growing up and being born or whatever. There's now an extensive list of cool places, sites, and things with a bit of a guide. And so we could get away from this heavy mental sickness in this country, which I understand comes with a lot of the problems we have. But a lot of people also, they wake up, they stay in their community or their village, they go to work, they come home, they sit in traffic, and then they're like, this country is such a shithole. There's nothing to do. I hate this place. The grass is greener somewhere else. Not really true. Trinidad and Tobago is popping off. in many positive ways if you're willing to look or whatever. Unless you just hate the outdoors and the apartment life is solely what you want. Okay, then go and maybe find, like, try and make your life in Manhattan or something. But point being, there's people who come here and this is heaven, even with our problems.
Yeah.
I cannot tell you the amount of people who come on my tours and are considering buying land, buying property, relocate. People message me that, like, not as much as some people just inquiring about revisiting, and most people come back, by the way. Whoever comes to Trinidad and Tobago,
That's good to know.
They return. But I get messages which are way too intense for me to tell people, like, Alan, we've moved away from Trinidad 30 years ago. We're retiring. We want to come home. What do you think we should do? Where should we live? What do you think? And I was like, listen, that is a huge decision.
Wow.
First of all, but here's what I can tell you. First of all, maybe if you're in a position where you're well off enough, why don't rent an Airbnb for like 3 months and come and just integrate into the system and see what. Because if you're living in Canada and you say it's whatever, coming up, Trinidad is cool, but there's a monotony to everyday life. Not everything is honeymoon phase, right? Come and see. Go to the license office. Do something. Feel the traffic.
Go open a bank account.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Whatever the case. Come and see before you commit to something. Because they're like, well, you show so much beauty, and I was like, listen, whatever I show, that is real, but it doesn't mean that you pick up and relocate from whatever you've learned over the last 30 years of monotony to some extent. It's a big
convenience,
cultural shift.
of Canada and the United States.
Yes.
There's a lot of convenience that comes with living there.
Exactly. Some of the things you really dislike about those places is also some of the things to like. Like Trinidad, as we know, some of the best parts of Trinidad and Tobago is the unlawfulness and the lack of strict rules and that kind of thing. Fuck it. I go and buy a boat and just go around the license and fish around the islands and fish. No license. I don't want to tell nobody nothing. Who cares? Across there, wherever you had to go and apply to catch like a guppy in the lake.
And they come into, I watch those YouTube videos where the game wardens come and mount the boats, and the man have 12 fish, but he's only allowed 8.
And the fish has to be a minimum of 9 inches.
Correct.
Else you shouldn't have it. Can you imagine implementing that in Trinidad? Point being, but so you have that great freedom. There's a lot of people speak about that to me. They're like, oh yes, we made a great life and wherever, but the rules are obviously good and strictness in some, because we complain about enforcement down here and doing things properly, but it obviously affects people in other ways where you just feel like, oh God, I want to let down my guard a little bit. I'm not a criminal. And in Trinidad, you can do that. You can, Carnival coming up, boss is sick for like the next 4 days, and you probably won't lose your job. And you're drunk in a fete or whatever, and you're playing a ducking work. In the States, you're just a cog in the system in many situations, Like, we take a lot of liberties here. And in the grand scheme of life, at least in my opinion, life is to be lived. Like, you see more and more people like, well, you're not meant to work away your soul and retire at 65. And so, in a way, Trinidad, if you're intuitive enough, you can live a pretty good life and also get that side of life where you're less work-oriented, perhaps, and maybe a little more beach-oriented and a little more eat nice food-oriented. And maybe that is a happier life. And some people say it that way. Now, if you could just get rid of that crime. And could you imagine how amazing Trinidad, just kick the crime and a lot of the corruption?
Paradise.
Top 10 world spot.
Paradise.
Create a situation where, oh my God, Stephen, the kind of dreams I have for this country, maybe it sounds a little naive and there's bigger things to address to. But I look at like places like El Salvador and different places who have turned themselves around. You know anything about El Salvador?
I know about the president, and I mean there's a lot, there's pros and cons. There's a lot of people got swept up in that.
Yes.
But yeah, he did clean up the country.
Yeah.
But a lot of people died, and a lot of people, innocent people got swept up in it. So yes. But I guess net positive.
Yeah.
But a good few negative
things. It
does
beg the question that can you peacefully dig a country like our situation
out of a crime and corruption?
Because they did it in Medellin, Colombia. This was not the point I was actually going to bring up. I'll get back to that. But just as we're on the topic, in Medellin, because I went there to do IVF with my wife, and I did the tours and like they're dangerous favelas, which were the most dangerous in the world at one point with Pablo Escobar and stuff. And I did the tour with the people on the ground who had like family members killed by gang violence and by government and problems. Anyway, long story short, it's like the equivalent. I'm not knocking Laventille, but just imagine you could pull up in Trinidad and walk up in Laventille, and the people give you guided tours to their art, and that's basically what it was. A very hot spot in the country, and they got it to a point where tourists, you could go with your cameras. They have tours. People are making money. Some of the gangsters still live there, but they know now it's not in their interest to harm tourists or whatever because they sell their little drugs and things. Point being though is that they got to that point by the government and the army coming in and basically going to war. Innocents died. While I was there, they had just uncovered a mass grave of like 100 bodies, and they're going through like identify the bodies to see if there's the government like it's gang members, and they're like, well, I think that's my granny, and those kind of things. Long story short, they were angry at the government, but they kind of acknowledge he's the guy who was not a criminal. He's like, how we got here today was because of all that madness and a lot of bloodshed and a lot of innocents, but a lot of gang members, and now we are able to make a living inviting people like you to come up. And so basically all the people who lived in these areas, just like Trinidad, because we know Laventille is 99% probably lovely people just trying to live their life. Yeah. It's not like all of Laventille is some kind of crime organization. A lot of people are just humbled by the criminal element in the area. So again, I bring it back to you. Imagine easing up the people of Laventille and all the talented people, all the singers, the dancers, the artists, the pan players, the people who could cook real good or whatever. Imagine cruise ships or even us walking up in Laventille and you book a tour with a Laventille resident and they take you right up to the top. In fact, in Medellin, they built escalators at some parts to make you ascend into the mountains easier. And all along the way, people are cooking empanadas, all kind of crazy street art. They have break dancers, children playing football, and tourists are spending money. So the community is earning and getting to express themselves, and they have all these proper programs, and you could go learn rapping, or you could learn dance, or you could learn education. It's just thriving. It's crazy. And it was far worse than anything Trinidad has in terms of gang areas and problems. It was literally Pablo Escobar's run area. Like the man was describing to me, he said, and this when I was there, this was 2 years ago, we went to Medellin, and the guy had said 10 years ago, you could not come up in here. And he described the situation like the gangs had created invisible lines. So you leave your house, there's no lines. You leave your house, and if the gang determined you crossed over into their turf, they'll just like shoot women and children and kill them on the ground, and that's it. You stepped over into our territory.
Wow.
People going to school and like young kids or whatever. The man who did my tour, actually, his best friend was just murdered outside his doorstep on his way to school or whatever. And the gangs were just out of control. And they seemingly could not do anything about it other than the police coming in with the army and combing through the entire area. And as you said, probably lots of innocents, so lost probably some people who are not proper gang members or whatever, caught up in the incarceration system. But net positive, I don't know. You see that a lot of people, that's a very touchy thing, right?
Yeah. As it should be. I think that
it is touchy.
Cleaning up crime is a thing that I think that, I hope that 100% of the people watching this would want, but at the end of the day, you can't ignore the negatives that would inevitably come with that.
You can't ignore it.
Go ahead.
No, sorry. Before we just went off on our whole thing. Before people think I meant to bring up El Salvador.
No, not at all.
What actually El Salvador did do is they created, obviously cleaned up crime as well, but they created a place called Surf City. As a surfer, they just took this area where it had amazing waves, but the powers that be acknowledged it, and they created this town out of it, which is now just thriving for tourists, people, digital nomads. People are coming there. They have world-recognized surf competitions, delicious restaurants and stuff, and they just seized on an area of the country that had nothing, really nothing popping off, and marketed it and made it into something. Could you imagine Trinidad on the Blanche shares, or let's say Trinidad and Tobago or whatever? Some people, I don't want people coming here and leave it untouched. And I'm all for a level of untouched.
Yeah.
But imagine stimulating the economy in a way where it's like, hey, we're going to advertise aggressively to people who want to come to a beautiful paradise. They're like, hey, by the way, you can work, if you could work remotely and stuff here, we set it up. Empower the locals in the area. Hey, you all make nice coffee shops, and Tobago has some of that already.
Yeah.
But set up in a way where it's just like a haven for people to come and bring their money and be like, why am I even living here? I could surf, I could stay, I could drink amazing coffee, I could smoke a little weed and people ain't jumping at me, and I could spend and just chill here. There's a proper accommodation. I feel that would be a nice thing for Trinidad and Tobago.
Yeah,
it doesn't have to be Surf City. The point is that use our natural things. Be like, hey, let's put some in here and be like, come, everybody come.
Well, I know the CSME, some people like it or they don't, but I think it's a very positive program, the CSME, where you could go around. I mean, it's specifically for CARICOM nationals, but it would be nice if we could, because Barbados you can go as a foreign national and be part of that kind of program.
To me, that's forward thinking, create a situation, just one aspect of bringing more to the economy.
So to close, it's so funny. We actually spoke on a lot of more things than I thought we were going to, which is great. And so my final question that I had written down as my final question seems a little out of place, but not to you. Your top 3 favorite places in Trinidad and Tobago, outdoor places that you visited, that you've recorded, or that you would like to go to, but your top 3 favorite that maybe you've been to but never recorded, that sort of thing.
So that I've not been to.
No, that you've been to or not been to.
Okay.
Because I'm curious now. Like I want to know where would be spots to go.
All right. I'll start with one that is not like a lot of people have been to, but I've asked this question many times in my life. 3 Pools in Blanchardshire. Have you ever been to 3 Pools?
Yes.
Right. A lot of people have. People have made it there now. However, it's more accessible than a lot of places. But you know what? 3 Pools on a sunny, dry weather day with a massive emerald pools, fairly easy hike. I always go there and I'm like one of those tourists, and I just obviously I whip out my phone a lot in general, but I'm always like, assuming you go there on a proper day, which again, pro tip, waterfalls, beaches and stuff in Trinidad, they always look the most beautiful with extended periods of dry weather. You try not to go anywhere where it's rained heavily the day or two before, you might get wrong or less attractive situations. So I think 3 Pools is real top tier, and it's just so much going on here. There's the first pool, the second pool, the swimming up the rivers, the jump, and it's just clear, picturesque beauty. So, and I've been going, that's one of the first places I ever went in my life in terms of outdoor. Like I was taken there at some point in my life when I was young. So 3 Pools. Right, let me see.
I purposely didn't send this question to you in advance because I wanted it to be off the top of your head.
It beats up in my brain a lot too, because now after start like racking through.
You have to start ranking it and thing.
Because new things come up all the time. But okay, I think D2 Beach in Blanchardshire. Again, you can pick anything, glass quavers, whatever. Yeah. D2, I have always been very fond of. Again, especially if you catch it on your right there, you go down the little pathway. Yeah. The palm trees, a small crescent-shaped beach, and in addition to being able to surf there at some points in time, but even when it's calm and beautiful, I just always liked, I've seen that place shine, I mean, you can always talk about Tobago's waters and stuff, and there's no denying Tobago is popping off on a different level. But Trinidad has some real beauty on the right days at its beaches. And that beach, I also proposed to my wife at that beach. Such was my love for it. Nothing to do with her. I wanted to go to where I learned to surf as well.
Very nice.
So it's particularly a big thing to me. I've been going there since I was a little boy. And let's pop it over to Tobago, not to leave Tobago out. At Tobago, I mean, where do you even begin?
Oh, that's I actually didn't even think of that. I should have asked you top 10 if that was the case.
Yeah, we'll be here all day, bro. But Tobago, let me be very careful with my pick. You know what? Back Bay salt pools in Tobago. You know the Back Bay salt pools?
Yeah.
Right. So, very famous in Tobago is Mount Irving Beach, world-class surfing site. Under a lot of things right now because they're looking to build a hotel on the site. And
on one part of it, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know where that's going. But anyway, so a big part of this place I'm mentioning is Back Bay. It's an actual beach, Back Bay Beach. And you walk to the end of it unofficially. I call it the salt pools. Some people beat up salt pools. You park in this kind of, it's not even like an indication. You just drive off the road and you park in like an open field. You walk down the staircase and you're on Back Bay Beach. It's like the size of like a three-quarter maracas, right, in length. And that beach alone is beautiful, amazing. A big nest inside for leatherback turtles and stuff as well. Can be a little rough for swimming at times. But you walk to the left for 10 minutes to the end of that beach and you come to like a rock structure formation. And when you get there and you bend, and it's kind of like Narnia kind of vibes, wherever you go through the bushes and you emerge on this little sand plateau. And what comes from that is a towering kind of rock. And on either side are 2 swimming areas, one calmer, next one, there's a little cave that if you're ridiculous, you could crawl through. And then right at the end of it, over the rocks, there's this very vibrant blue, deeper channel that's just cut through the rocks. And it's about 9 to 10 feet deep. So you can't stand there. So for people who could swim only, you do not want to be jumping in there if you cannot swim. But it's just insane, the color contrast, whatever. Even more crazy if you throw up a drone and you look down on it.
Yeah.
And I think it's incredible that you could go there, especially when it's calm and sunny. And you walk out and you could set up your chairs. You could cook a little grill if you want. Somebody could snorkel in the deep end. Children and people could play in the shallow end. It's just like insanely beautiful. Even better if you're willing to wait around until sunset. You won't even believe that like everything just turns gold and orange. It's very insane. Yeah. So there's a big one.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I've always been like I consider myself a patriot for many reasons, but what we offer, especially from the filmmaking side of things, what we offer locations wise, because I'm now developing a production out of LA wants to shoot here.
Okay.
And so we're now developing like a locations package for them to send them, to show them stuff. And, and so, should send them some of the caves and of course the beaches and down the islands and Tucker Valley.
Spoils the choice.
And and the producer from LA responded with 4 words. And her only response was, "Wow, I'm in love."
Yeah.
This is a producer in LA. And so I was, it just kind of made me a little proud. As soon when I saw her response in the email, I was like, yeah, damn right. Yes.
She's not wrong.
Trinidad is beautiful. We are beautiful. And but I appreciate the time, man.
No,
this was awesome. This was fantastic. Thank you very, very much.
I hope I've spoken enough about whatever you set out for as opposed to...
Oh, no, this is a conversation. So however, that's the great thing is that sometimes the conversations go pretty much like down the line. And then sometimes we get to go on little tangents, which is, there's no structure here. I just want to have a cool conversation.
Talking, right?
I want to learn. I want people to, the people to have an opportunity to kind of learn from, different people in different fields. And that's the whole point of it. But I guess, dry season's coming up. So I'm assuming that we're going to have some good weather for some hikes and some good sightseeing.
Definitely.
So maybe we could do, in a few months, we could do another episode, but out of studio. We'll do a Three Pools podcast. Yeah. I'm sure Cameron is excited about that one.
You know what?
Filming outdoors.
We'll go somewhere, and that'll be the first time I've ever been robbed outdoors. And they'll be like, "Look at this country, Dren." Yeah. Nah, just playing. But yeah, 100%.
Some fake wood here.
Yeah. What is this?
Yeah. But I appreciate the time, man.
No, 100%. I love it, and I hope I've seen that you've had quite a few podcasts, and it seems like it's a very well thought out professional setup. So these conversations are important, not necessarily in me, but it's good. You want to talk to people in Trinidad and Tobago, and I'm sure it'll pique a lot of people's interest as you continue to grow.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Cheers, bro.
Yeah, respect.
Take care.